Let's rewind back to the 1990s, an era that is considered to be, at least from US standards, a time of global peace and prosperity compared to, the previous few decades where we were constantly on the brink of nuclear war or navigating jungles or shit like that. In 1991, the Cold War finally thawed out. And believe it or not, after the Cold War ended, the United States was only involved in...
Attention! This segment has been removed from the video for inaccurate information. United States, always good. God bless America.
Way to go, USA. You did good on that. Without having to worry about being blown to pieces by our Russian friends, an age of cultural and technological innovation began. A golden era in the United States where people anxiously wondered which boy band could tip their hair the frostiest. A golden era where teaching Grandpa how to do the Macarena was absolutely essential to his personal survival. An era where you stuffed your brother into those big-ass jeans that you wore so that you could get half-price tickets to see Batman, which, bad move, genius, you should have went and saw Pocahontas instead. Because P.U., that was a stinker of a movie.
I want a car. Chicks dig the car.
This is why Superman works alone.
But of all the major phenomena of the 1990s, by far the most exciting were the innovations of the computer, and more specifically, the internet. Computers were selling like hotcakes, not just for businesses, but also for consumers. In fact, the number of computers in households increased from 15% in 1990 to 35% in 1997. Computers also played an important role in business functionality from banks to Wall Street. They were becoming a systematic necessity, which is great. But there was one looming problem that more and more people started to discuss as the year 2000 approached, a small bug that could produce problems if not addressed. But I'm sure it wasn't a huge problem. I mean, more and more systems were integrating computers into their everyday operations, so I'm sure they were on top of it, right? What's that? President Clinton is talking? Bill? Okay, what does he have to say?
The Vice President discussed the design flaw in millions of the world's computers. This is not a challenge that is susceptible to a single government program or an easy fix. I wanted to stress the urgency of the challenge to people who are not in this room. There is still a pressing need for action. The consequences of the Millennium Bug, if not addressed, it could affect electric power, phone service, air travel, major governmental service. We're not just talking about computer networks with billions of embedded chips built into everyday products. The solution, unfortunately, is massive, painstaking, and labor-intensive. It will take a lot of time to rewrite lines of computer code in existing systems, to buy new ones, or put in place backup plans so that essential business and government services are not interrupted. This is clearly one of the most complex management challenges in history. There are still gaping holes. Of the small businesses that even know about the problem, roughly half intend to do nothing about it. Now, this is not one of the summer movies where you can close your eyes during the scary parts. It is important that we act and not be in denial. It is also very important that we avoid overreaction from people who hear, oh my goodness, this problem is out there.
Well, that's all right. I'm sure this isn't going to cause people to panic or anything like that. We got this, right?
Y2K and Y2K.
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 We got specifics today on how ill-prepared America's computers are for the year 2000.
It's not going to be anything, just another day.
We're asking, what are they buying these things for? And they're basically saying they're trying to get prepared.
In my 250 to 300 reports, I only found one that said it's hype.
Of course, I may be wrong.
Today, a Senate panel reported that up to 40% of the country could be hit by power failures on New Year's 2000 because computers get confused.
No one really knows for sure exactly how long or how bad it will be.
In dead of winter, at the stroke of midnight, January 1st, 2000,
all the other great world leaders believe something is coming.
Going to withdraw cash, and he hasn't done that. Even so, Airplanes and trains may come to a halt.
Fears of the Y2K bug are keeping many people grounded, and most say they'll settle for being close to home with family and friends.
You wouldn't want to be in an airplane. Elevators may stop.
You wouldn't want to be in an elevator.
Hospitals, clinic, pharmacies.
And you wouldn't want to be in a hospital.
If you hide the facts, if you try to gloss them over with some sort of happy face scenario that all is well when all is not well.
Oh God, it's spreading! These are not my predictions. I hope they don't all happen.
There's a significant risk, a 40% risk, of a global recession.
Then you're going to create the very panic that we're all trying to avoid.
Call now and order your ultimate Y2K survival kit.
We have about a year's supply of food here.
This whole world's going to rock and roll.
They'll tell you everything's fine. They're lying to you.
Because I think by and large, the public is asleep.
The Andersons are ready. Opt for protecting my family. They've taken the time to participate in an emergency contingency plan.
People are not aware of it.
And with this system, you've got water pressure, you've got showers, sinks, toilets, and everything that works just like normal.
It is our primary goal in this program to help families and communities across the world to prepare.
They don't care. They think the thing is basically been solved and it's not an issue any longer.
Where the biggest sellers are ammunition, gun safes, kerosene lamps, and water jugs.
If you find your way into the woods, you can always leave a trail behind you so you can find your way back.
But if you're looking for a generator, forget it. There are none.
Everything ain't fine. We are this close to just going crazy, going to hell. It's going to explode. Everything because they don't know. Because who knew we'd run out of 19s?
Shit.
I'm speaking, of course, about the so-called year 2000 problem, which, as everybody knows, well, unfortunately, not everybody does know it, but...
So what exactly was Y2K, aka Year 2000 bug, aka NBA 2K00? Hope you didn't spend any money on that dumpster fire of a game. The Y2K bug wasn't an actual bug per se, but more of a programming issue. You see, back in the early days of computing, memory was considered to be precious. So in order to save space, instead of using 4 digits for years, they decided instead they would use 2 digits. Not a big deal, right? Or so we thought. People started to realize as the year 2000 approached, hey, what's gonna happen to computers when we move from the year 1999 or 99 in computer language to the year 2000 or 00? Will the computer be able to interpret that correctly, that it's the year 2000, or will it consider it to be the year 1900? What kind of effects could that create? The Y2K bug was first recognized by a computer scientist by the name of Bob Bemer back in the 1950s. He was the first to speak on the potentially disastrous effects of the Y2K bug. However, most people who worked with computers at the time saw it as a problem that didn't need to be fixed in the 1950s and could be pushed further and further out. Which, I mean, look at this guy. Look at this guy. How could you not take his advice and fix the problem now instead of later? Let's dig a little bit deeper and understand why Y2K. Why Y2K? Let's dig a little bit deeper and try to understand why Y2K was considered to be potentially disastrous. I know what you might be asking yourself. So why was this a big issue? What did it mean for society? And to that I say, geez, hold on, we're going to get there. You got to be a little more patient, okay? Thank you.
Y2K test in 3, 2, 1.
Experts warned of potentially disastrous consequences, everything from system failures to data corruption to massive widespread outages. For example, one concern was that the financial system itself would collapse, leading to incorrect bank transactions. There were also concerns about utility outages, leading to things like no power and no water, which are two things that are very important to society. Imagine the headlines: planes falling from the sky, banks losing all of their money, your fridge gaining sentience and refusing to chill your snacks. Okay, maybe not that last one, but you get the point. If something drastic wasn't done, there were potentially disastrous consequences, and the public took notice.
The soft-pack military MREs, meals ready to eat, are an excellent seller. We've had some people that come in that were presidents of local banks, of a large philanthropic organization, people that are high up in government agencies here.
Reports were everywhere. Stories and articles about how people needed to be prepared. And boy, did people listen. Suddenly, your average trip to the grocery store felt like a race against time, with people snatching up anything considered to be non-perishable. Beans, butter, powdered milk, cereal. No. Put that back. We are not getting the generic brand of Cookie Crisp again. We have had the generic brand the last 3 weeks. I just want normal Cookie Crisp as a normal American family. There's not too much to ask. That's what I thought. And in regards to stashing all these items, who could really blame people with all of the hysteria? It's really no wonder that people started to act like this was some sort of apocalyptic event. And it wasn't just your average ordinary citizen that was gearing up for Y2K. By the mid-1990s, governments started to take notice of the issue and invested billions of dollars to try to solve the problem. Billions, with a B. I'm talking massive task forces.
There's no 100% guarantee military communities can expect minimal disruption. But if there is a problem, used here and every ASG will have 24-hour response team centers set up from December 31st through January 7th.
System upgrades.
If 2000 doesn't come up, you'll probably want to update your computer. There are thousands of websites out there that offer information on upgrades,
as well as contingency plans in case things didn't go well.
They're watching for everything from a road closure to a utility system failure to celebrations getting out of hand.
In 1998, President Bill Clinton took action, signing an executive order. This created President's Council on Year 2000 Conversion. Lots of words. This council was established to fix the Y2K bug across federal agencies, businesses, as well as international partners. It was like a giant global tech support mission with way more at stake than just frozen screens. Oh, and also the government kind of signed a bunch of legislation saying that you weren't really allowed to sue companies if something did go wrong with Y2K. So like basically if all of your funds got lost, then, you know, sucks to suck. So that's
fine.
Clinton, aware of the potentially catastrophic consequences of Y2K, labeled it as a staggering challenge.
The worldwide cost will run into the tens, perhaps the hundreds of billions of dollars. And that's the cost of fixing the problem, not the cost if something actually goes wrong. Already, extraordinary efforts are underway by the people on the platform, many of you out here and others, but more must be done. We know first we have to put our own house in order to make certain the government will be able to continue to guard our borders, guide air traffic, send out Social Security and Medicare checks, and fulfill our other duties.
But he also emphasized that with timely action, there would be no significant disruptions in technology. He urged for calm while also telling businesses to get their shit together and get on it. When it came to the public, some people were taking things to an extreme. There was a subset of people that were focused on building bunkers and stashing those bunkers in order to survive the potential tech-geddon.
You know, there's people out there that I've talked to that said, there's nothing going to happen. What are you basing that on? Nobody knows. No.
Imagine telling your friend that you were going to be spending New Year's in a bunker because your dad was worried that the end was nigh. Yeah, they might have thought you were a little bit nuts, but at least your dad was prepared and had enough spam to go around. In hindsight, it's easy to laugh at all of these doomsday preppers who were storing all these goods in their bunkers, but at the time, whether people wanted to admit it or not, society itself was holding its breath, waiting to see what was going to happen. Before we get into what happened that night, let's first quickly talk about how Y2K was just one part of a bigger cultural story, one where the world was standing on the brink of the 21st century, caught between excitement and anxiety about what the future might hold.
Must have been hard debugging all those computers, huh, Homer?
Doing what now?
You did fix them, right, Dad? Because even a single faulty unit could corrupt every other computer in the world.
That can't be true, honey. If it were, I'd be terrified.
Even though Y2K itself might not have impacted fashion or pop culture at a higher level, it certainly added to the global fascination with computers and technology and just the future in general. Movies like The Matrix and Hackers captured the fear as well as fascination of a society increasingly reliant on technology. Even though these films didn't directly spring from the Y2K fascination, they reflected a broader anxiety that Y2K only amplified. The idea that our technology could betray us, or that we could be living a digital illusion, was a theme that resonated deeply with a lot of people as 2000 approached. Interestingly, the film Office Space does make reference to the Y2K bug in a comedic way.
I sit in a cubicle and I update bank software for the 2000 switch.
What's that?
Well, see, they wrote all this bank software, and to save space, they used 2 digits for the date instead of 4, so like 98 instead of 1998. So I go through these thousands of lines of code, and it doesn't really matter.
This is treated as something that is a boring, bureaucratic task that really doesn't have any significant meaning. It's interesting how it captures the sentiment at the time. It also represents the monotony of late 90s office work. Also, #Justice for Milton, that building should have been burned down a long time ago. The music scene of the 90s was also influenced by a futuristic vibe. Pop stars embraced looks that made it seem like they were ready for the new millennium. Again, this wasn't directly because of Y2K, but all of it represented the broader theme of excitement and anxiety about what the future had to hold. And as December 31st, 1999 approached, we were all wondering, would our fears or our fashion choices survive in the new millennium?
But Britain has already seen its first Y2K problem. Thousands of swipe machines rejected credit cards this week because of a failure to recognise the year 2000. But the real test will come next week when the financial sector starts up again for what's hoped will be business as usual.
The big night finally arrived. 1999 was ending. As the world spent months, even years, preparing their computers, everybody was holding their breath. Would everything go dark at midnight? Would computers lose their mind and start the year with a literal bang? Would Grandpa finally get his shit together and figure out how to do the Macarena? Or would it just be another New Year's celebration with little to no drama on the side? People were glued to their television sets, waiting for the ball to drop and the world to not. As the clock moved closer, news outlets were buzzing. Some were describing the events of the new year, while others were reporting on what potentially catastrophic events could happen.
As Peter said, just over half an hour to midnight here in the UK, and they are gearing up for possible bug problems at the government's Crisis Command Centre in Whitehall.
All the people say that preparation had to be done, and that's why there will be no problems after midnight. Of course, we won't know whether the millennium bug is actually there until the millennium. And in some senses, you won't really know until we all go back to work.
It was like the world was split between, yay, New Year's, and oh no, Y2K.
The doomsdayers were British.
And then, midnight. The year 2000 had officially begun. In New York, the ball dropped. In London, Big Ben chimed. In Tokyo, fireworks lit up the sky. And nothing happened. The lights stayed on, planes didn't fall from the sky, and your grandma's computer did not start planning world domination.
Here's Johnny.
IT experts who spent years fixing their systems finally got to sit back and relax. And probably cracked a bottle of champagne in the process. Or Capri Sun, I'm not judging. It's the type of anticlimax that's both disappointing and also relieving. And what about all those Y2K preppers who had a bunker full of beans and water? Well, let's just say they probably had a really interesting meal plan for the next few years. So, the world didn't end, but Y2K isn't just about what did not happen. While the bug didn't bite, it certainly left a mark on history. So it leads us to our final question. Was Y2K all hype? Or did we prevent something truly catastrophic?
So far, though, the Y2K bug seems to have been squiffed, leading some to suggest that the danger posed by the bug had always been grossly exaggerated.
You never get credit for the disasters you avert, especially if you're a programmer and nobody understands what you're doing to begin with.
The truth is, Y2K wasn't just some scare tactic. It was a massive issue that required a coordinated effort to solve. Governments, corporations, and IT companies spent years preparing for this moment. Billions of dollars were spent updating systems and rewriting code.
We have sort of a lack of confidence that things can get done. People did not grasp the magnitude of the effort. The easier thing to keep in your mind was all that noise about it and nothing happened. It must have just been a hoax.
People who worked on this issue were true tech heroes. They weren't just sitting around doing nothing. And to their credit, their efforts were rewarded. Everything worked. Well, mostly. A few minor glitches did pop up, like the time that a system for a New York video rental store thought that tapes were overdue by 100 years. Can you imagine renting Batman, and then after experiencing the visual nausea of having to watch that movie, you take it back to the video store and they go, "Oh, you really owe $1,000 to us." Yeah, no thanks. There was also an issue where some traffic lights in Australia just stopped working, so, that happened too. Nothing groundbreaking, nothing earth-shattering, nothing world-ending, but just enough to keep things interesting. So the big question, was the panic worth it? In some ways, yes. It made us realize how much we relied on these systems that, at the time, were outdated. It also shows us what happens when society comes together and is able to solve a problem. But in other ways, yeah, the panic probably wasn't worth it. The doomsday predictions, the basements full of canned beans, all of it seems a little silly in hindsight. But then again, isn't that just how we humans are? We prepare for the worst, hope for the best, and get a little carried away in the process. Thanks for going with me on this trip down memory lane. I hope you enjoyed. Tell somebody you love them. Thanks for watching. But wait, shouldn't we talk about Y2K 38? I mean, that's coming up really soon, and we're not even close to prepared, are we? I mean, what? Shh, go to sleep. Go to sleep. They're not ready for that. Go to sleep. Another time. Another time.